And I'm going to walk you through the last 10 or so years of my career with the purpose of sharing with you what I've learned along the way. And the clicker would help. So I finished my HSC in 1999 and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I pretty much didn't want to keep working at Macca's, so I did a secretarial course at TAFE so that I could go and get into an office. I worked at Leighton Contractors for 12 months as a secretary, and it was pretty boring. I think I was pretty much out every single night of the week partying anyway, so it was an easy job. I had a very controlling boyfriend at the time who didn't like me working at Leighton Contractors, and I think I was earning about 18k or something at the time, so fair enough. And he went and found me a role at OMD Sydney and pretty much made me go for it, so that's kind of how I stumbled into the industry. I started at OMD Sydney in August 2001 as PA to the General Manager of OMD, who's actually now at O-Media with Kirkby. He's General Manager over there. At the time, Fishy was the General Manager for probably about 6 months before the role changed, and he went to head up the McDonald's team. So my role then changed to PA/planning coordinator. So that's kind of how I went from secretarial into a semi-media role. When he stepped onto the account, as I said, my role changed, but I did all of the offline reporting, such as like competitive documents, radio advisor analysis, and all things like that. And I also looked after the strategy and the planning team too, so it was kind of a big role for me. I learned all of the tools which you guys will all be familiar with, like your BCC, your Asteroid, your ETAM, and it's pretty much the go-to girl on the team for all of those runs and all of that. Luckily enough, I was exposed to all of the pitch documents being the PA, which I think was pretty good for me in my career, because I mean, you don't get a lot of exposure to the strategic insight and any of the planning when you're pretty much at that level, so that was kind of great for me. Fishy did media roadshows around the country to all of the McDonald's licensees, and some pretty hectic documents had to be built and presentations and all that, which I built as well, so there's more of my PA role coming in there. So as you can see, it wasn't really a typical media role that I entered in the industry with, but I worked really hard, and as Kirkby said, you know, working in the early years till 9, 10 o'clock at night wasn't uncommon. It was something that we pretty much did all the time, so not sustainable, something that, like Kirkby said, I definitely think that you should try not to do that, because that's a way out of the industry. You burn out and then you're going to want to leave. I'm lucky that I didn't burn out and want to leave, but so not only did we work really hard, but we also played really hard. Fishy was really good to us, gave us tickets to pretty much anything we wanted to do, so we pretty much went to the opening of an envelope, which was always fun. One year I managed to get us to the exclusive Aria's after party where we met the Black Eyed Peas, and a week after that, Who magazine had an article about the night, and there was a reference to an unidentified blonde getting cozy with the Black Eyed Peas. It's pretty funny. I do actually have a point to this. My point about the partying part is just making the most of it. You know, we're really lucky to have access to all of these fun parties, and there's not really many professional industries that you get all of this, and it's all funded for you. You know, so especially as coordinators, when you're at the beginning of your career, to be able to, you know, have so much fun with like-minded people, and it's all funded for you. I don't think I could have ever afforded to have had as much fun as I've had over the last 10-ish years in the industry. So I think you guys will all be starting to realise that, you know, you start to make best friends in the industry. I've been blessed with all the people in my time in the industry. Two of the girls that I met in the early days at OMD, that's Anita Munro from Mindshare and Samantha Preston at Ikon. They're bridesmaids at my wedding in a couple of months, and I've known them both for about 10 years, so I've made best mates in the industry as well. To keep me balanced, I also worked on the Ronald McDonald House Charities Committee for about 3 or so years. I think finding things and doing things charitable within the industry is, I don't know, for me, helps me keep me grounded and makes me be able to give something back, so I kind of tend to get involved in as much charity initiatives as I can. So I definitely think that's a good idea. Towards about the third year into my role over at OMD, I kind of decided, hey, I think this media thing's for me. I think I actually like it. It did take me a while, but I'm blonde, so you know, what are you going to do? So I actually enrolled in an AFA at school media planning and buying course, which Linda, you actually took, which was great. So it was a 3-month crash course, media planning and buying, and then I started buying TV at OMD. Broke up with a dodgy controlling boyfriend that got me the job at OMD, and Sam was heading overseas in 2004, so packed up and followed her over. So as we all know, our industry is full of pommies, English friends over here, and one of my friends who I worked with at OMD Sydney moved back home overseas, and so when I landed in London, I gave her a call, and she actually was the one that hooked me up with the role at Manning Gottlieb, which was fantastic. My point is to not underestimate the power of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Every move that I've pretty much made throughout my career has been based on knowing someone. I think that the controlling boyfriend was the one that got me into it, and then every other move has been based on just networking and knowing people. So I worked as a coordinator in London for about 9 months. I think I started back as a coordinator there because I didn't know the market, so it was quite a cruisy role into it. And I was promoted to press specialist after about 9 months, working on clients such as Nissan, Mitsubishi, Ocean Spray, Hertz, London Energy, Virgin Games, which was awesome. Working in London was probably one of the best things that I've ever done in my career. I learned how to trade in London. I don't know if any of you have worked in London yet or are from there, but trading in London as a press specialist was absolutely vicious. I think I got called a C-bomb once, which was pretty interesting. Because on a Friday, I think he'd been drinking. Knowing your shit is important. There was no asking for discount's sake. You had to have analysed absolutely everything. They've even got even more tools to analyse whether or not you've got legs to stand on or not, and know your weaknesses and your strengths to do the trade. So I think I found my confidence in that market. I can be quite shy sometimes, and I think that especially with the trade side of things, I don't think I would have gained the trade strength that I gained had I not have worked in London, because the market over there is so much more vicious. So after a year and a half of working in London, I saved enough money to travel around Europe, and I left Manning Gottlieb OMD en route home. As I said, it was one of the best things that I've ever done. It was really challenging, and I think, Grant, you said the same thing about how much travelling and working overseas outside of your comfort zone makes you grow personally and professionally. I think before I left to go overseas, I wasn't shallow, but I just didn't have a lot of depth to me, and there'd be people, I know that sounds a bit funny, but like I'd speak to people who I worked with at OMD, and I'd be like, wow, I've got like nothing in common with you. And then when I got back, I just felt like I had so much more confidence and depth and the ability to hold conversations and trade, and I just grew so much from that experience. It was just awesome. So you'll also notice that there are no photos to represent the time in London, and that's pretty much because I, like Grant, got really, really fat. So Heathrow injection struck, and I put on about 15 kegs. So entering back into the Australian market was interesting. I felt like I'd forgotten pretty much everything I knew. Having to relearn how to buy TV after being a press specialist was interesting, but at the end of the day, it all comes flooding back. Media is a little bit like riding a bike. Once you've done it, you don't lose your skills. I think one of the things that I'd spoken to a couple of girlfriends who'd done the whole travel thing as well before they'd come home was the fear of just forgetting absolutely everything. And I think that sometimes that fear can actually hold you back from doing it, but don't, because it's, as I said, it's just like riding a bike, you don't forget any of it. So in May 2007, I headed to Ikon to work on Sony BMG. As you can imagine, Sony is a super duper fun client. There's me with pink. They were a fantastic client. They treated us like colleagues. We had hot desks in their offices, and we had a lot of fun working with them. I learned two really, really big things working on Sony BMG, now Sony Music I should say. The first thing I learned is how much relationships count for, and how important it is to cherish our media partner relationships. Working on a product like CDs, you've got the ARIA charts to contend with. So, 1 minute Guy Sebastian is the bomb, the next minute is not. So you've got to move all your TV around. And I don't think we would ever have been able to do what we did in such a short period of time with the pressure on the TV market at the time. We would never have been able to move stuff around like we did without the relationships we had with our TV partners. The other thing that I learnt is that media is media. Working on a glamorous product still has a trade in TV, out of home, press and all that. But sometimes working on products and services, you can feel like the grass is always greener on the other side, and you may wonder, that glamorous fashion client over there, that sounds awesome, and you could be tempted to leave a great client to go and work on something different, which is pretty much the same shit. It's media is media, and actually working on Commonwealth Bank now, I innovate more in product with media than I have done in all of my years. So I can prove that a boring banking client can actually be a lot of fun, and that media is media at the end of the day. So in May 2008, I moved to work on ComSec. Working on ComSec was obviously extremely different to working on Sony BMG. I had one massive client, or one massive brief to work on, which was the launch of the new training platform, and on Sony I had about a zillion tiny little campaigns to work on. What I really enjoyed about working on this client was innovating in channel, so in particular outdoor. So this was some station dominations that we did with ABN, and pretty much just thought, how can we do a reveal with the ad, and we put up like decals which we removed in a stage approach. Bottom part is some street furniture stuff where we wrapped up a JC to Code panel and did an unveiling there, and the other one is some creative use of the scrolling bollards. But what I found really fun about that was actually working with my team, brainstorming, and then approaching your media partners and actually making things come to life. I think what's really important, my point here is actually just working really closely with your media owners and knowing that anything is possible. Later I'll show you a recent example of a 55-inch digital touchscreen activation that we had with JC2Co. The activation had never been done before, but working closely with all parties, face-to-face meetings, meant that we could pretty much pull it off in a short period of time. As long as you give a good solid face-to-face brief that includes as much information as possible, then you'll get good output. I think too often media people expect your partners to jump through hoops with a poorly constructed brief, or little information, and expect output to be really strong. So I think what's really important to note is that 99% of the time your partner's response will reflect your brief. For example, a bad brief will give you a bad response, or a great brief will give you a great response. I think it's also really good practice to make sure you include your own ideas, brainstorm internally, and don't just expect everything to be on your partner's shoulders. Have a think as well. Come up with your own ideas and then let the media owners build on it, or it might spark other thoughts as well. So after the concept launch and the continuity activities sort of tapered off, I moved to work on Colonial First State and partly on Commonwealth Bank. My time on this team as a trader was really, really good for me. I was starting to come to a really good point in my career where I was winning Trader of the Month, month in, month out, from regional TV negotiations that I was doing for the whole Commonwealth Bank group, which I found extremely tough, but I learned a lot in such a short period of time. At this point in my career, as I said, I was a really strong trader, and I was kind of looking at my options for the next step. I think as a trader, you kind of sit there and go, where am I going to go? Obviously, you can head to strategy, or you can head to trading manager or comms manager, or whatever the equivalent is in each of your agencies. And I kind of was stumped because I was really good at trading, but it stressed the shit out of me. I literally would lose sleep over it. So I think at the time I pretty much had to make a decision. So I think you come to a point in your career when you actually have to get some help from a mentor to make decisions like that. Someone who can be 100% honest with you and tell you things that you don't want to hear. And I actually had one of my colleagues who was a mentor and actually still mentors me today, and pretty much just helped me to weigh up all the pros and the cons and pointed a few things out that annoyed me, but I took it. And he pretty much advised me to take the comms manager approach. So I think, yeah, my point is that it was tough to to make that decision and to sort of head away from my strength. But at the end of the day, I'm really pleased that I did it, and I'm really pleased that I sort of utilised mentors in the industry to sort of help me make that decision. What I will say though, it can also be a good idea to look outside the industry for mentors. I think sometimes you can have people or mentors internally that might have a swayed opinion to a particular way. So having an unbiased mentor can also be a really good idea. So since moving to the retail side of Commonwealth Bank, I've learned so much about managing clients. I've got so many people and so many different products to manage now, from credit cards to transactions to savings, financial planning to personal loans to foreign exchange and more. I've got a team on each of those products to manage, and my best tip for juggling a lot of clients and a really heavy workload is something that seems really simple, but it's a really great approach to every day. It was on Chris Savage's blog, Wrestling Possums, and it's to eat frogs. Don't know if any of you saw it. But basically it talks about writing an extremely detailed to-do list every day. Simple, I know, but a lot of people don't do it. And then pretty much identifying that frog. What's that rock that, pretty much blocks you from getting things done, makes you procrastinate? So the whole frog idea is to, write your list and eat that frog in the morning, so that pretty much you've got the shit out of the way, and then you can pretty much, the rest of your day's a breeze if you can get that done, and then, go from there. I've also learned a lot more about managing people in this role. Since stepping across to this team and in my current position, I'm managing a lot more people now. I do think that managing people is not something that is easily learnt in training, tips, tricks and all of that kind of stuff. It's actually just doing it and learning from experience. I think a lot of it has also come from maturity. I think back in the day when I was young and I would never have been able to do it. I was too shy. I wouldn't say boo to an ant, But now, being a lot more strong and knowing more and having a bit of maturity and heading into the 30 age group, I'm a little bit more mature. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. Another big thing to note about my current role and my next step is that I've recently learned to upskill to plan and buy digital. In the current marketplace, I just don't think that there's any room for someone to not be well versed in digital. Our clients have expectations for us to understand digital. So I'd recommend any of the offline people here to seek cross-training in digital. And likewise for the other way around, people in digital, yes, it's the way of the future, but I still think you should also try cross-train and upskill and be well versed in offline as well. As I said, for my next step, I need to have a great understanding of every channel, but not just each channel by itself, but how they can all work together. And if you don't have an understanding of one of those channels, then there's a big hole in the skill gap. So I mentioned before that I've had a lot of fun innovating in channel with Commonwealth Bank Group. And so I've got two examples here of pretty much, it was the same product. It was for the award-winning Commonwealth Bank Property Guide, and pretty much how we've, two executions that we've had to get consumers to engage with the product and learn a little bit about the property guide and how it can make your property hunt better. So I've got a couple of examples now. The video might play when I click to it, so I'll just tell you quickly. There's a press ad, a full-page press ad on the left-hand side when I click to it, which pretty much you downloaded an app and you held it above it and above the full-page ad, and then the town pretty much came to life. It was an augmented reality execution, so I'll just play the video for you now. That's a mock cut, by the way.
Do you need sound?
No, I don't think sound really matters. It's more just how it comes to life, really. And I'm showing you the fun version, actually, not the one that demonstrates the product, but where it gets a little branch dude to dance, because I thought that was a bit fun. So it's a bit slow. Anyway, there he is. That's Mr. Bank Manager, and he's going to do a dance. Anyway, cool. So you get the gist there. So that's innovating with press. And to the next, I won't flip to the next page. I'll just explain what the next one was. As I said, it's the 55-inch digital panel in the JC Decode panels. Again, we needed to demonstrate. sound doesn't really matter, it's just music. So we needed to drive up, take an understanding of the benefits of the property guide. And this one's funny because it actually started out as a creative agency idea to pretty much get a random house in Sydney and erect a silk screen and then project like pictures of what the property app would look like. I was just like, really? Like, 3 people are going to see that. So kind of like went back. It was a good idea. It was a good idea. I'll give them that. But you know, we collaborated, and we've recently seen the Creative Shop come through and present to us about their digital out of home executions in Korea. And the idea was born out of pretty much picking up their idea but putting it in a street furniture panel. And amplifying it socially. So obviously this would get bigger reach than just one house with 3 people. So I'll show you the video just quickly. So you can see people interacting with the touch and pretty much navigating their way around. It was a property hunt, so you had to answer a couple of questions which you went in to find within the game. And then you entered in your email address and magic social things happen there as well. So you can kind of see that. I'll skip to the next one to save on time. So my first point with these 2 examples is to really know that anything is possible. I mean, an augmented reality app in a newspaper, I mean, that's pretty cool. So, you know, all you've got to do is talk to your partners. My second point is to attend agency presentations, no matter who it is, from your partners, because you never know what idea and therefore a client solution could come out of seeing some random dudes presenting random stuff about outdoor and Korea. You know, it was just as simple as going to a presentation and then meeting people that way, and that was how the solution came about that the client loved. So day to day, with all of my zillion different clients, no 2 days are really the same. So obviously client service is top there, managing my team, working closely with the strategist to bring the campaign to life and staying true to the strategy. Media planning and campaign implementation, the usual stuff. Meetings with clients, you know, briefings, amplification, presentations, whips, debriefs, post-analysis, and meeting with partners, as I said, very important. And as you can imagine, with Commonwealth Bank being so big, we've got a lot of money going through our system, so having a really, a very detailed and awesome process around invoicing is very important. Which I manage, and then I'm also on the social committee just to, you know, mix the day up a little bit because I don't know, sometimes it can get a little bit dry doing the same thing day in and day out, but you know, we can all have a bit of fun with that kind of stuff too. So I've kind of told you bits and pieces and stories and stuff throughout my presentation, but I've just kind of put everything on one slide to sort of bring home what I think the most important things that I've learned in my career. Pick your own journey. I think it's been a theme through everyone's presentation so far that, you know, you can come from working in a building firm or an industrial decorator or something or other, something like that. You know, starting out in a creative agency, starting out anywhere, and just knowing that you're not wed to what you're doing. If you find something that you love and you're interested, go for it. Have fun, but don't take it for granted. I think quite often, sometimes we get a little bit blasé with all of the fun stuff that we're given, but we shouldn't take that for granted. Work overseas, to Grant's point, so important for your growth, to either travel or work overseas or whatever floats your boat. Networking, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Keep talking, like stay around after this for drinks and meet people, it's so important. Cherish your immediate partner relationships, we need each other. You never know what trouble's around the next corner and who you're going to need to help you out of it. Media is media. Grass isn't always greener. Get a mentor. That's probably should be at the top of the list, but I did it in order of the presentation. Write a to-do list each day and eat that frog. Managing people comes with experience, and attend your agency partner presentations. And that is it. Questions afterwards? Or do you want to do it now? Yeah.
All right, questions? Anyone? Yeah, go Lucky.
Do you have any jokes we share on fishing?
Probably. How much money have you got?
We'll talk after.
Yeah.
questions?
How many salespeople would you see in a week? Because, you know, I've seen so many presentations, there's so much more media to see and catch up with, and everybody wants to see you.
Yeah, I
so
know.
from a sales point of view, you know, like how do they get through? And
Well, I personally think that you have to have a happy balance, because, you know, if I didn't put some kind of control over it, I'd be in meetings all day. Working on the bank, everyone wants a slice. But I think I mean, you know, if it's going to be relevant enough or not, you know, meeting someone who's got creative digital out of home things to show you that, hey, that could be pretty cool. But if it's someone saying, hey, I want to show you an ad on a sandwich pack or something like that, you kind of think, hey, it's probably not really going to be overly relevant, so I'll send my trader to go to that meeting.
Yeah, I've actually got one. This might be on behalf of some of the agency guys still in investment or still in the comms teams. What's next?
Oh, so
Yeah, so you mentioned there's two routes you can take. You could either go natural progression, we'd assume, would be into strategy, or do you work your way up into?
No, strategy's not actually really for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I appreciate it and I've got a great respect for it, but I think probably goes back to my PA background. I love organising and process, and I'm good at it, and I'm good with relationships, so I'll definitely stay on the same path. But I think learning to buy and plan digital media is pretty much bolstered my next step to become communications director, and pretty much just taking on more responsibility, more people, which pretty much makes me happy. So whoops. See what happens there. So.
Good one. All right, another round of applause for Ali.